It's our weekly discussion program, Moral Side of the News, and we're glad you're alongside today. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. Joining me today is a distinguished panel, Rabbi Gaylia Rooks, the Temple, Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition, Dr. John Slider, Breckenridge Chapel Free Methodist, and Father Tony Smith, Archdiocese of Louisville. Our first topic, to mask or not to mask. That ongoing point of contention is back in the Kentucky State House. The bill up for vote would prohibit mask requirements at all public schools, school transportation, and at school-sponsored events. The bill's sponsor, Representative Lynn Beckler of Marion, claims mask wearing is tied to higher youth suicides and causes students to struggle to see facial expressions. We turn to our panel on Moral Side of the News. Is this bill a good idea?
Now, as I understand it, it eliminates the mandate for schools to mask, but the state mandate, but the schools themselves or the school systems may have their own mandate. Guys, am I understanding that, or is it a statewide elimination
this supersedes everything, as I understand it. Supersedes everything.
There's a question whether it supersedes the federal mandates as well, type thing. So
right, like wearing one on a bus. I mean, that's a federal mandate on school public transportation. And I just don't understand how that can even be a question. There are children in schools, in classrooms, but to get there, they have to take the bus. And if you have medically fragile children, that would prevent them. I mean, it's such a minimal accommodation, as well as, in my opinion, such a sensible and responsible mandate that children certainly, let's just start there, on a school bus, be required to wear masks so that all kids, even those who have, various immunocompromised or immunity issues, would be able to get to school.
I don't want to double up here, but most places I've been, if not all, the preponderance of places that I've been, I've not been in schools, have not required masks for, at least for customers. And I know some businesses are eliminating that now. I'm surprised that there would be a reaction to schools doing the same thing that the rest of the communities are. Apparently, school children are the least vulnerable part of our population. At least that's my understanding. So I'm just, I don't know why there's a lot of resistance to having schools the same as the rest of the community.
That's the question, John. Is that the case? Number one. Number two, as I understand it, the large percentage of those who are getting the virus and dying are children. So it is not that they're invulnerable to the disease or whatever.
Or even less vulnerable.
Well, where are they getting it? Where are they getting it?
Well, that's the issue.
My understanding is that they are, I'm sorry, Tony, but is that they are the least vulnerable and the least likely, if they get it, to die. But
that's being proven questionable, if not wrong, in the present scenarios. It is true. I mean, to your point, on a lot of companies, whatever, are going this direction. My difficulty with the legislation, was it House Bill 51 or whatever, is that it tries to mandate from the other side of the coin. Yeah. And we've seen this happen in other states. I mean, look at Virginia. The new Republican governor comes in and immediately does exactly what this bill is proposing. And you had, 17 or more school districts said to the governor, we're not going to abide by that. We're looking at the health of the children. And they brought lawsuits against him for that. I think, well, and to be honest with you, in the Catholic school system here in the state, we've just got notifications from the Archbishop that because of the downturn in the virus, et cetera, as of next Monday, it will be optional mask in our school systems. However, talking to our principal here at St. Patrick's, whatever, that's the one side of the front side of the coin. The back side of the coin is if someone does come out positive, it layers more levels of activity that's mandated of the school, et cetera. So it's making it easier for kids to come to the school without the mask. But if there's a positive, then all kinds of heck breaks loose. So it's not as simple yes or no on the mask. My concern is that as I read the legislation proposed, whatever, it's kind of the same type of thing the governor in Virginia was trying to do, just mandate against this. It perpetuates, again, I'm going left field a little bit, just in the news today. What is it? The candidate for the state, there was a Secretary of State of Arizona. I don't know if you saw this, is saying that the COVID is not real. There's no such thing as COVID, number one. And number two, the vaccination is simply, as he terms it, crimes against humanity. That type of activities from our people who want to be in the legislation, I'm not saying that's here in Kentucky, but I think we're close to it, to be honest with that. So my reaction is against the bill because of its trying to mandate the negative side of the mandate for masks. So,
if I may chime in, I agree with what you just said, Tony. I agree with Gaylia for such a minimalist requirement that yields a tremendous return for protection of life. I think there's no comparison between the two. The argument to try to double mandate against the mandate appears to be just a preposterous premise on its face. And those that are closest to the children, the school board, respective school boards, they have a different kind of heart and a different kind of mindset as it relates to children's safety. They lean towards the children's safety first. Now, if there's any inconvenience, sad to say that the mask may be a bit inconvenient, but I'd rather be inconvenienced and alive than free and dead. And for those who are, this leans more toward the political, division. You have the anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers. So it's really a very clear way to frame the argument. And those that are promoting this appear to be on that side for political motivations rather than the safety and life preservation of the children. That should always be first. That's why I commend the governor who issued a mandate in the first place. He clearly has positioned himself to be a statesman rather than a simple politician. Politicians, they are always looking for the next election, and statesmen are concerned about the next generation. So even at great risk to his political career, he's made some very strong stands to preserve and protect life. And I think that the masks clearly protect the life. There's no risk of harm the way these other legislation and framework are claiming that it leads to suicide. There's no proof whatsoever to support that claim. And I think that this mandate against the mandate that prevents school districts from issuing a local mandate, I think is just wrong.
I agree 100%. And there is a tremendous increase in suicide, but there's also a tremendous increase in anxiety, depression, anger management. A lot of the kids, having spent more time at home, are not only missing the positives of social interactions with their peers, but unfortunately, many of them are experiencing more abuse at home. And it is not at all surprising. It's devastating, but not surprising that youth suicide rates have increased. But to say that's because people are wearing masks and you can't read their facial expressions is, to me, ludicrous.
I like the term ludicrous. That's going to be my word for the day.
Well,
That's your rapper handle, isn't it, Clay?
Say rap, yeah.
I was going to say is ridiculous on the face of it because you said that, Clay, on the face of it, like a mask.
Yeah, a little play on words.
But the most important thing is protecting human life, and especially our children, our future, our precious children. And, if there's a class that doesn't have any special needs or special health concerns, when the time comes and it's okay not to mask and they choose, I don't know, the parents or the school board, but on the buses, that just can't be a question, or you're preventing the most vulnerable of our children from, what does the law say? They need to have the highest level of access to typical general school that they can have. Even if they're in a special ed classroom in the school, they need to be able to get there on the bus. And I just don't know what happened to the, when President Biden starts making mandates and the governor starts making mandates and everybody's saying, oh, states' rights and it should be the local school boards. Well, this isn't local.
This being what? The state?
Right.
Yeah, let me, and I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but this is not a mandate not to wear a mask from the state. It's just a removal of the mandate to wear a mask. Now, that may be nuanced. Yes, it gives parents the freedom to have their kids do what the parents want. And
but what
I would
about
argue,
my kid what about my kid who
your kid's got a mask on. So they're obviously protected if a mask protects you. Now there's the mega study that the New York Times put out said that it was a sliver of a fraction of a benefit in wearing the mask. If you look at how people wear masks around you, I call it chin COVID because they've got their nose where they're breathing in and out, exposed. I mean, there's, just because somebody's got a mask hanging between their ears doesn't mean that they're wearing it properly and that it protects from anything. The cloth masks don't protect. I would argue too that the person's statement was made that the teachers and the school boards were the closest to the children. I disagree. I make an obvious statement. The parents are the closest to the children. The parents are the one who should be deciding. If a parent wants their child to wear a mask and protect themselves from receiving if that's a way they perceive that they're protecting their children from COVID, so be it. I would also suggest that one person's politician in a pejorative sense is another person's hero, because a politician in this case, or in all cases, is simply someone who is listening to their constituents and doing as their constituents want. So let's see this mandate simply as it's not a mandate, it's a removal of the state mandate to wear a mask, gives the parents the choice and the local school board the choice.
Well, John, let me just add this real quick. I'm going to say this real quickly. I'm going to see this for what it is. It's when you say the parents are close to the children. Well, the children, when they come to school, they're in close proximity to other children. So they become face to face with other people's children.
Okay, and it was being used in a different sense.
Let me finish.
Yes.
They become in close proximity to spreading germs and virus in a way that puts the other parents' children at risk. So I think clearly the masks help, they don't hurt. I think it's proven that masks protect life and don't hurt life. Even Jesus with this gave his sternest warning for those that put children's lives at risk. When it says, suffer little children come unto me, also because these little ones to stumble. He reserved his strongest condemnation, if I may use that term, against those that put children's lives at risk. And I think that the protection of life and the concern about wearing masks to protect children's lives is clearly one that is designed to protect life. We understand that liberty is important, but life trumps everything, and protection of life trumps everything.
You've changed from saying that the closest to the children are the teachers and the school board, therefore they should make the decision, to now saying that other children are the closest. Certainly they are in proximity, but if the mask works, a parent can say to their child, parents can say to their child, wear a mask. And obviously that would protect the child if the mask works.
Well, the mask do work.
It protects yourself.
Okay, then tell your kids to wear the mask.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here and move on to our second topic because it's also a very
We've solved that.
topic.
Is that-
So let's
I
get
think we already
on to
knew
that.
that it was a political issue rather than a scientific health or, in my opinion, moral issue. The moral issue here
There you
is
go.
Thank
protecting
you. And
all
as,
children.
as we move to the next topic.
Correct. We're about halfway
Yeah.
through moral side of the news, and we're glad our viewers and listeners are alongside. Here's our second topic. We all remember the horrific Sandy Hook Elementary shootings in 2012. 28 people died that day, 27 at the school, including the gunman who took his own life, as well as the gunman's mother, who was killed at her home earlier that day. This week, Remington Arms agreed to settle liability claims from the families of those killed. The gunman used a Remington assault type rifle to kill 20 first graders and 6 adults at that school. Remington has agreed to pay the families $73 million. So, panelists on moral side of the news, this marks the first time a gun manufacturer has been held accountable for a mass shooting in the U.S.
If I must add, I say double bravo. That's a double bravo. It does set a precedent. So I say bravo to those parents and family members who decided that they need to enlist a boy named Sue to sue the manufacturer of the weapon. They appear to have been exempt for so many years in this country from liability exposure. So this does indeed set a very important precedent. I think that goes a long way to regulating the firearms in this nation. So I say bravo.
And I'll double your double bravo with a triple bravo.
Mhm.
I think, a lot of what you're referring to is from the gun lobby and preventing sensible gun legislation from passing. Most Americans are in favor of sensible gun laws. That does not mean that people cannot have guns. What it means is that the kind of weapon, a semi-automatic weapon, a weapon of war, I mean, all those people were killed within just like 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, you do not need, if you're hunting or you're protecting your home or whatever it is you're doing, you do not need a semi-automatic weapon in order to do that. And I think that that's part of where this is coming from. These are military grade weapons put in the hands of, Tony's not happy with me.
No,
I'm just listening to, I'd say, does Rabbi Gaylia knows what she's really saying? Because they, first off, we use the term assault rifle, whatever like that. An AR-15 is not an assault rifle. AR refers to Armalite Corporation that produces the weapon. Semi-auto, I have I've said this before on the panel, I have a 22 caliber squirrel rifle that would look like something Arnold Schwarzenegger would carry around in a movie. That doesn't, because it looks that way, does not mean that it's any kind of assault weapon. You don't need even guns to assault people. We found that out recently with automobiles and knives and all this other good stuff. However, hang on. It'd be fast, yes, okay, fine. But your argument that is these are war implements, again, most, as my understanding of moral theology, most implements, whether it's a long barrel, short barrel firearm or an automobile, which kills more people than firearms does, they are not moral in either way. They're amoral. It's what we do with such implements that brings about the morality. But to say that there's no place for such, talk to the the International Olympics. Right now, they're going through some firearms in the Olympics and target shooting and all this other good stuff. If you've ever fired firearms, I do have firearms, short barrels and long barrels, yes. But I have semi-automatics. I have single shots. I have black powder rifles, single shot. That's it. But it's what you do with such, using Occam's razor. It's not in and of itself immoral to have or to hold or to use. But now the whole point of sensible gun laws, my understanding, there are many sensible gun laws. I'm not a member of the NRA, but this is an argument from the NRA. There are many sensible gun laws on the books that the government, state and federal do not implement, do not follow through with. So to say they're going to ban something because it looks dangerous or something that they, well,
It's
not
not
that they,
because it looks dangerous. A 22 is not, rapid fire multiple rounds. It's not
22
because
is a rapid fire multiple gun. Yes, it is. Again, it depends on how you are set up in your quote 22. The 22 is one of the favorite weapons for killing people in this country. It's not the AR-15, 30-30 or 32-73 or whatever it is, calibers. My point is, any implement you have, whether it's my mouse here on the desk, I could use that to hurt someone with, or even kill someone with it, depending on what I did with it. My point is, yes, we would like to see, I'm first to say there are too many guns in this country, but to say that the gun company here, Remington, is doing something good and good for the court system, keep in mind as well, they settled.
Yeah.
Which means they did not go to court. Again, I fall back on the sex abuse stuff for the Diocese of Louisville. We settled for $27 million because if we went to court, it would be over $200 million. So for Remington, who's already had a going out of business sale type thing and trying to protect themselves from such, for them to settle it's a good legal ploy. It doesn't mean that they're claiming any guilt at all or anything, that they're not acknowledging your argument, Gaylia, that they were making weapons of war that should be only in the military situation. I'm dominating. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut here.
No, that's all right. Just to piggyback on that, a settlement does not create a precedent. Now, I'm all of us here, and I'm bold to say this, but all of us here would agree that the Sandy Hook incident was a tragedy. And we all pray that those incidents never happen again. We can debate about the details of what could have stopped it during the course, before the whatever. It was a tragedy. Now, where do we go forward? I mean, Tony's eloquently discussed the misinformation about description of the rifles, and so I won't beat that up. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what rifles are, what weapons are, how they function, and just because they look like something that's warlike doesn't mean that they are.
Well, if I might add this, I mean, there's a difference between a tragedy and a trend. A tragedy is something that happens rarely. But what took place in Sandy Hook was a trend, a sad, tragic trend that keeps recurring over and over and over again. And there's a big difference. I know we have a lot of hypotheticals we try to use to say, well, you can get killed by a car and so forth. Yeah, well, cars, when you die with an automobile, they kill retail. These assault weapons kill wholesale.
Not
big difference.
No.
Let me finish.
Well,
You kill large numbers of people in a short amount of time. So these weapons in particular can cause large carnage in ways that other regulated single shot weapons or with minimal clips can. So that's a fact. So we don't have to theorize on that.
It's not a fact. Like
the fact speaks for themselves.
we do, but those are not facts.
These mass shootings occur with rapid fire assault type weapons.
They don't know what an assault weapon is.
They don't occur with knives. They don't occur with weapons like that. They are a similar trend of these assault style weapons. That's a fact. So the issue is not just the tragedy of it, but the trend of it. And I think that this does indeed set a precedent. This has never happened before in the history of this nation, a kind of a settlement by an arms manufacturer settling like this.
Well, I think just because you say assault weapon over and over again doesn't mean that's a fact. You have no idea what an assault weapon is. There is no definition of an assault weapon.
Being able to kill 30 children in 3 minutes cannot be done, I don't think, with a 22. It has
absolutely
to
can.
Yes.
It shows, Gay, I try to use this in proper way.
But I used to know more about guns. You know what I know about guns? I know for a fact that countries with fewer guns have fewer gun deaths.
There you go. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And also there was an assault weapon ban.
But do they have fewer homicides with other implements? And I would say to you, check your figures before you say yes.
But a knife and an axe, you can overwhelm someone who's one by one killing someone. When you
How
have
many
Bus
How many
on the
people
London,
can you
how
kill
about a
with an
bus on the
airplane?
London Bridge that wiped out on more than just a few individuals? How about individuals using vehicles
Yep, no,
to
there's
plow
no
into
question.
crowds, et
There's
cetera?
no question. Yep,
there's
there's
no
no
question.
question.
But the whole thing is, again, there's a difference between automobiles and guns because, again, and here's a legal precedent, et cetera. You have a constitutional right, supposedly, to have firearms. You do not have a constitutional right to have a vehicle. And so there's a difference between countries that you say are where guns are not allowed because that they do not have a constitutional right. I'm all in favor of the Supreme Court, again, ruling on the constitutionality of owning firearms. That's something we've avoided. But again, the last 2 or 3 times, as I recall, that it's gone towards the courts have backed the constitutional right. Just recently, in memory, in Washington, D.C., where you would get arrested by having a gun. The Supreme Court threw that out, saying you cannot do that. It's a constitutional right. So
Well,
there's
speaking
issues
of
involved.
Constitution, Tony, the government has a constitutional responsibility to regulate. And they're the only ones that can.
But the problem with that is, Clay, is they do not contradict the constitutional right to own firearms, even though they might try to regulate. That's up in the air as to
Not
what
try.
regulation.
The Second Amendment requires them to they're the only person that can only entity that can regulate. Period.
In the history,
I
that
don't understand
supposed
what that means.
regulation is gone. I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, I don't understand what that point is, Clay. I mean, if regulations and laws would have prevented the Sandy Hook tragedy, then I got an idea. Make a law that you cannot kill people by using a firearm.
Well, I don't want to get.
Oh, wait a minute. We already have
Because
that law and it still happened.
Yeah, but we don't want to go down these hypotheticals. I want to deal with the facts of what happened and these trends that reoccur.
But
with these
Clay,
assault
your
weapons.
facts are not the facts that others accept.
You know, when it hits close to home and you know someone, or God forbid, your own child would be killed, I think it would open people's eyes to realize that more regulation, more careful background checks, required waiting periods, and things like that would matter. But also the kind of gun that Sarah Palin went hunting, from a helicopter. That's not sports-like. I mean, you don't need automatic or semi-automatic weapons to go hunting.
It's according to Rabbi Gaylia.
That's right.
Okay, folks, a very open and energized discussion on this edition of Moral Side of the News. And I say thank you to our panel. You see, you're all smiling at the end, so that's always good. Thank you to Rabbi Gaylia Rooks, Reverend Clay Calloway, Dr. John Slider, and Father Tony Smith. We'll be back again next week with another edition of this program, Moral Side of the News. Until then, thanks, panel. We'll see you next time. So long. The 69th annual WHAS Crusade for Children is set for June 4th and 5th, but you can get involved now. Just go to whascrusade.org and see all the ways you can make a donation to the Crusade for Children and make a secure donation online. That's at whascrusade.org.